back, everybody, to the second episode of the PFN Dallas Cowboys Podcast. I'm Jess Nevarez, joined alongside my co-host,
Dalton Miller.
Hello, Dalton. Another week of doing this incredible podcast. I'm so excited.
Me too. And we have real, half real football to talk about here.
Yeah, halfway. I wouldn't say it's like real football, but it's a glimpse of what it could be.
It was real for one person. Okay. It was real for one person. The Deuce is loose. I mean, that's the hot or not for this week. We're going to get into it right away. In my opinion, based off of what we saw in the preseason, and I'm not there at practices, I don't see what's going on. He is the undisputed RB2 for the Dallas Cowboys. That's no disrespect to Rico Dowdle or Malik Davis. I think that both of those guys could come in and be effective RB2 type of guys if they needed to be. But I think that the skill set of Deuce is fantastic. I think that when you are, I guess that slippery is the way to say it. I don't think that you really need to worry as much about the yards after contact. They're just not really going to be there for a guy that's 175 pounds, but he has the ability to make you miss, and he has the ability to get so skinny through the hole. I mean, you saw it a couple of times. Those were not big lanes to run through, and he was able to sneak through. I mean, we obviously got one of the most incredible photos I've ever seen of him with all of the monsters behind him, and it looks like he's running away from the Monstars. It's a great photo, and he was unbelievable in his first outing as a Dallas Cowboy.
So you are officially checking up the Deuce as RB2.
Yes, the Deuce is the Deuce for the Dallas Cowboys run game, and
that's good. That's great.
It's very rare that you get. First of all, that you never have this type of hype surrounding a 6th round pick ever. It just doesn't happen. But we've had an entire spring and summer full of this small running back propaganda pretty much on social media. And it has come to fruition, and he was fantastic in this outing. Hopefully he gets a chance to play against some more, or I guess, stiffer competition with the ones in this upcoming game. That would be a lot of fun to see if he can continue to be effective against the opposing teams starting.
What I really appreciate about Deuce is obviously the production he has on field was incredible to watch. Just the spin moves and his ability to shift his weight so quickly, and then his takeoff speed. That's another really big aspect of his game. It was all great to watch, but catching up with him in the locker room afterwards was so cool, because this was his welcome to the NFL moment, and to cap off his night with the only rushing touchdown for the Cowboys in the game was so special. Obviously, everybody asked if he got to talk to his dad. And he said, yeah, I talked to my dad in the tunnel, and he's here in the locker room, and it's really surreal. But just his teammates' reactions alone to his touchdown says everything you need to know about how well he fits in this puzzle for the Dallas Cowboys. I think he's not going to be your big blocking guy, but with this West Coast offense, that's what your tight ends are set for in the scheme. It's not necessarily it's an addition if he can block, right? But it's not ever going to be the same aspect as you had with Ezekiel Elliott, who, by the way, congratulations to Zeke for his 1-year deal in New England. It makes so much sense. Wishing him all the best. And that haircut, I knew something was brewing when we saw the old school Zeke haircut. But I am glad that conversation is put to bed officially for the Dallas Cowboys, so they can just focus on what they have now, because they have a great running back room, right? So Deuce, absolutely, I think there's a spot for him in this roster. Am I convinced he's RB2 yet? Not just yet. And here's why. It's because you have a guy like Rico Dowdle who, yes, he had the fumble, but when you go back and you look at the tape, it wasn't all him. It wasn't just the ball security that was the issue. Kevontae Turpin looked to have bump into him a little bit. That didn't help. So I think it was just a little bit of a miscue there. Something he definitely needs to work on. And what I want to see going into this next game is the ball security just being absolutely 100% from everybody. But I don't count Rico Dowdle out yet. You're talking about a guy who this is really his first opportunity to absorb what he has, and talking to him in the offseason, talking to him even after the game, he knows that. And he knows that now is the chance. A guy like Rico needs to do it now, or it's just that's it, Malik Davis, he didn't have the best game, but I also wouldn't count him out yet. I think this is a competition that really can change day by day. And because Deuce is the people's choice, I think we want to assume that he's RB2. And look, I have no doubt there's a spot for him on the roster, especially with his special teams ability.
Mm-hmm.
And, you have that 1-2 punch with the running back room. You could do that with the returner and the punt returner position, like we talked about, especially if Kevontae Turpin is taking more of that role on the offense. Give him some rest every now and then, don't overwork the guy and keep his body healthy. I think Deuce fits in. It's just, how do they approach the running back two? Is there a running back two, or is it split between two people? I mean, really, at this point, the sky's the limit for that position. So Deuce is loose. I'm excited. He's a great guy. Great guy on and off the field. Everything you want a guy on your team to be. So if you're a Cowboys fan, you should just be excited. Go buy a Deuce jersey already. It's unofficial yet. I mean, he's not, the final roster's not out.
Yeah, you gotta wait until we figure out what number he's actually going to be wearing, and he'll still probably wear the same number, right? Because he wants to one up from. Yeah,
that's my guess. And the whole Darren Sproles tie, I that's my best guess. But good for Deuce. I'm so glad he had a good showing there. Not so good, on the other hand, was the offensive line production during the game. However, people go by party hats. We have a celebration to officially make. Zack Martin is back. Cheers. We're going to cheers to that. I don't know if you can see this. Dalton has his Cowboys cup. I have a green Starbucks drink for the money that Zack Martin is now counting as he's in Oxnard, because reports saying that he has touched ground in Oxnard for training camp. So our Zack Martin watch is officially over. I did want to go over his deal for a little bit here, because he did get 2 years guaranteed with this new redone contract, which basically guarantees him about $18 million a year. Essentially, he has an $8 million pay raise, making him the third highest paid guard in the league, behind Quentin Nelson and Chris Lindstrom, who, fun fact, has his brother in the Cowboys locker room as a backup center, Alec Lindstrom. So pretty cool ties there. But Dalton, what do you think of Zack's deal? Do you think this is a fair deal for everybody, including Zack? Is this a player-friendly deal for him?
Yeah, I mean, fully guaranteed is always good, especially in the NFL, where contracts are always unnecessarily complicated. And so getting those 2 years is really big for him. It'll be interesting to see if they give him another extension, another big extension to keep him around for 2026, or if he might want to, hang it up in 2025. I mean, I don't know what he wants to do with his career. I mean, we've seen guys like Ali Marpet in Tampa Bay kind of call it quits in the prime of their career. And Zack, he might not be at his absolute prime anymore physically, but he is still, in my opinion, the best offensive guard in the NFL. I don't think it's particularly close. And we're looking at a guy who, by the end of it, might have 8 first-team All-Pros in his career. He's going to be a first-ballot Hall of Famer when the time comes, and he better do that as a Dallas Cowboy from start to finish.
Oh, yes. Say that loudly. Oh, my goodness. Say it as loud as you can. And of course, we have to mention it. The stat that everyone loves to just yell when we're hearing about Zack Martin. More Pro Bowls than holding calls.
More Pro Bowls than holding calls.
Go scream it to the mountaintop. I need everybody. I don't care where you are. Go yell it. I don't care if you're at work, if you're at your apartment, your house. I don't care. Go let people know that Zack Martin has 8 million reasons to be back at practice. We did hear from Mike McCarthy. We're recording this on Tuesday. Mike McCarthy talked on Tuesday morning ahead of practice, saying that Zack's going to be in a ramp-up phase right now, which is, it's not an injury-related thing or anything like that. It's a precautionary thing. You got to take care of your players, especially when they're a little bit older and as prized as Zack Martin is in the O-line.
I think we see a lot of these guys early in camp get injured because they come in and are at 100 miles an hour right away. And although they are training all summer, it's different from what you're going to be doing at practice. And especially once you start hitting guys, because you haven't hit guys since, last January, most likely. So it's nice, this little ramp up period, especially for a guy on the offensive line who he doesn't need to practice anyways. So might as well bring him in slow.
And he has been getting some offseason training with Duke Manyweather, so it's not like Zach's just been sitting around waiting for this to happen. He's been working, he's been putting in the work. That's just Mike McCarthy's approach. I doubt we'll see Zack Martin get any preseason snaps, if any of the starters, but it will be nice to see him back in the O-line, which Dalton, my friend, we have a lot to talk about when it comes to that preseason game. The O-line definitely being one of them and one of the areas that they struggled with the most. But, something I will say as we preface this conversation is that it's just preseason. And yes, it's important to get that film and that experience for these younger guys, especially, but the sky's not falling. We're good. We're good. Life's good. It's all good. But what could we really take away from this is kind of the way to approach the preseason. So let's get right into it. Preseason, game 1, Dallas Cowboys versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. They fell short 23-28. But let's talk about the O-line, because Mike McCarthy has really put a lot of emphasis on wanting to correct the pass protection aspect of the quarterback in the pocket. In this case, it was Cooper Rush and then mostly Will Grier. Where can the O-line really shore up and kind of correct what they did or were not doing during this game?
Yeah, I think when we look at the preseason and football in general in the preseason, we have to understand that the depth along defensive lines is just vastly superior to whatever you have on the offensive side of the ball. The athletic freaks are not playing the offensive line. They're playing the defensive side of the ball. They're not playing guard. They're playing defensive tackle. And so when you look at these rosters and you look at, you're Raheem Richards, who you have hope for in the future as a draft pick, as a developmental draft pick. And honestly, at left tackle, I felt like he played really well overall. But I think when you look at it overall, it's just the difference between defensive line depth and offensive line depth. These are guys who you don't want to have to count on. And you have to obviously try to find, an interior guy who can come in and rotate in if a guy gets hurt. And, most likely we are going to have to see Tyler Smith out at left tackle eventually. So somebody is going to have to come in at left guard. But I think overall, we just need to kind of focus on who that interior guy is going to be in this, and then who could possibly be the swing tackle who shows the most throughout these next 2 games.
Absolutely, and that's a great way of putting it in terms of the O-line. So basically, don't be too critical just yet, people. It's only one preseason.
Yeah, this isn't the offensive line you're going to see on Sundays.
No.
So we're okay good for now.
Life's good. Again, there's no reason to panic at all at this point. Life's good in Cowboys world. But let's talk about that wide receiver group, because, man, what a show did they put on. And, I think the obvious one to talk about first is Jalen Tolbert. I'm so proud of Jalen. I mentioned this last year. Oh my goodness, last year too. Yeah, I was talking to him, but last episode, hello. And I think even catching up with him after the game, something that I wanted to ask him about was, how do you feel? Because seeing this guy go through the progression that he's gone through to get here has been really cool. And I only get to see a glimpse of it, and it's been really cool for me to see it. And he is like, it hasn't hit me yet. He just said, I'm being honest, I don't think it's going to hit me right away. I think it's going to take a couple days to actually hit me that happened. So that shows you just how laser focused he is. What we did talk about was during a press conference with Brian Schottenheimer, he had talked about Jalen's master note-taking skills. And so I finally got to ask Jalen, hey, what's up with your notebook that everybody's talking about? Like, what's the big deal? And he said he's very artistic. And so his notes don't just have, written notes. They're like pictures and like legitimate drawings that are very detailed of every single thing. And I asked him, well, are you a visual learner? Is that why you do it? And he said, yeah, I feel like I can grasp it more if I'm drawing it. So I thought that was really cool for him. I think that offensive PI was not a great call, but a good learning lesson for him. You want the separation. I get it.
I'm team always OPI. We see guys like Jamar Chase who are absolute professionals at it, pushing off every single time they're at the top of their route when they're coming back to the quarterback. And you just have to figure out a way to get away with it when you do it. And more often than not, you're going to get away with it. So you might as well do it.
Yeah. And man, that would have been such a great play for him. But I'm glad he topped off his night, getting the Cowboys on the board with his first Cowboys touchdown. Just a great moment for him overall. I think Jalen Brooks, another name you don't really want to count out yet. And then on the other side of that, you have a guy in John Stevens Jr., which is wide receiver, tight end. Do we know yet? I think he can play a little bit of everything at this point, which the versatility should tell you that he's a guy you shouldn't be counting out either. So the tight end room, also, I was looking for how they block in this West Coast offense. Who really stood out to you in this entire group, whether it be wide receivers or tight ends?
I didn't really look too much into the blocking this week when it came to the tight ends. I'm very much not somebody who doesn't believe that it is as important as we kind of make it out to be for tight ends to be able to block. I mean, you would like for them to be able to pass protect when they have to be in max pro, but you want these guys to be able to catch passes. And I think when you look at John Stevens, especially from the slot, somebody who is a mismatch, somebody who I think could kind of play in the Noah Brown role that we saw a couple of years ago where, is he a wide receiver? Is he a tight end? He's somebody that you put in motion and is able to block, be a lead blocker, might be able to give you a little bit of freedom if you don't want to keep 4 running backs, including Luke Key on the roster. It all depends on how they want this to kind of shake down at the end. But he is definitely making a case in it, what I think is a really talented tight end group to make this team. And honestly, there's more depth at wide receiver than we've seen in a long time for the Dallas Cowboys as well. When you look at somebody like Dennis Houston, who was starting for this football team in week 1 last year, to see how far the Dallas Cowboys have come at the wide receiver position, to see Jalen Tolbert's ascension happen in real time has been really nice. And it shows that the Cowboys, in my opinion, and I kind of lean towards the pessimistic side of things when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys, because I'm a 31-year-old Dallas Cowboys fan.
You're a little jaded. That's okay.
Yeah, a little bit jaded. But I have a lot of confidence in this football team this year. And, at the end of the day, it'll come down to how well the offensive line is able to protect Dak Prescott, and what this offense looks like with Mike McCarthy calling the plays.
I think in terms of the tight end group, I wanted to mention a guy that deserves all his flowers, Jake Ferguson. Welcome to that tight end 1 position.
He's so good.
He is just so undeniably good. I mean, was it Travis Kelce out there or Jake Ferguson? I couldn't really tell for a second there, honestly. But his abilities, holy cow. I said on Girls Talk, Boys Talk earlier this morning, he reminded me of Elastigirl from The Incredibles. How just like Gumby almost. He stretched his body so well to make plays that a tight end 1 should make. And I'm really excited to see more of him as the season goes on.
And we saw that last year too. I think when you kind of see the testing numbers coming out of school, you're not like that impressed with it. But then some of these guys, especially at the tight end position, you see on the field and it's like, okay, these guys are super loose. And I think that flexibility is kind of what is able to separate you at the end. I mean, I think that's why Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the NFL. I don't think it's his explosiveness or his pure route running ability. I think it's the flexibility that he has to be able to get in and out of breaks to supplement that route running ability and that explosiveness that he has. You look at a guy, same thing, Stephon Diggs is kind of that same version of that, except a little bit less explosive. And when you have that at the tight end position, you get guys like Travis Kelce, who, when you look at Travis Kelce, you don't think he's super fast, but he will outrun you. So I think when you look at somebody like Ferguson and honestly, a couple of these Dallas Cowboys tight ends, I think that you have guys who are that sneaky athletic. And that's not too bad to see.
Yeah, I really want to see more of Schoonmaker, and obviously he's coming out of that foot injury, and so I didn't expect to see a whole lot of him. But the more he ramps up, the more I'm just so intrigued to see how he can kind of mold into this tight end group, because we know he fits in. He fits the body type. He fits every part of it, but I just want to see him in action a little bit more with the offense since we haven't. So yeah, I think Jake Ferguson deserved his flowers for the day. But let's go to the other side of the ball. Let's talk defense, because the depth in this defense is something that I think should excite everybody. All position groups in this defense seem to have cylinders that are firing really everywhere. And so this defense is so stacked. It's almost scary to think that this was not your starting defense. And yeah, it wasn't a perfect game, but the amount of penalties that they were able to draw from Jacksonville is something that caught my eye automatically to say, ooh, this is good. And these are just your backups, your second, third string guys. What is the Cowboys starting defense? What are they going to be able to pull off? So, a guy obviously I wanted to talk about was Damone Clark. I mean, this guy is really, really just so impressive. And his entire story of coming up the spinal fusion and everything like that he's worked to get back on the field even last season, it was incredible. But to see the work he's put in to get where he is now, he had the green dot on his helmet, so he was the ultimate communicator. What makes me really excited for him is we know Leighton Vander Esch is getting older, and by no means am I saying he's anywhere close to being done. He's not. But you're seeing the path being paved for the future of this Dallas Cowboys linebacker room with Damone Clark. And that in itself should just make you excited. He was all over the place. Oh, my goodness. So flowers to Damone Clark on my end today.
Yeah, with Damone, the story is amazing. I didn't think he had a chance of coming back last season to play at all. I thought it was fantastic. And then obviously he spent a ton of time with Leighton Vander Esch this offseason. And I think that that'll help a lot because I think you have to have that symbiotic relationship at the linebacker spot, being able to play off of one another and kind of not have to think about it, be able to, if a guy gets a little bit over his skis on play action, you're able to kind of take over his responsibility in zone coverage. He can take yours over, he can pick up a back. To have that kind of relationship is really nice. And going back to what you said about drawing penalties on the offensive side of the ball, that just comes down to, getting them into, third down situations and having a defensive coordinator that can throw so much at you in those pass rush situations like Dan Quinn can. I mean, it's part of the reason why this pass rush is so dangerous. And it's part of the reason why this Dallas Cowboys defense, even though they will face much stiffer competition this year than they did last season with the schedule, I expect them to be as good as they were last season because they have that CB2 now. And that CB2 is actually kind of like a CB1B. So they can be aggressive. They can run more cover one if they want to. And I think it's going to be really fun to watch.
What's really cool is when I caught up with Damone at camp, he talked about how him and Leighton have grown this bond that they have because Leighton would go to his physical therapy sessions and sit in with him when he was trying to rehab to come back even last year. And so Leighton and him really relate on the injury side of things. So yeah, to see that brotherhood is awesome. Another guy that I wanted to make sure to mention, and he is not overshown. In fact, he is very undershown. DeMarvion overshown. Wow. What a guy, what an asset to this team. He was all over the place. I mean, I swear I was like, oh, it's Overshown. I didn't even have to look up really to see who was making the play. It was Marvin Overshown. And so I'm really excited to see, this guy from a really small town who just didn't have a huge chance to get this opportunity from where he was to where he is now. That's the kind of storybook ending you really can't even make up. And he has worked for every opportunity he has, and he's taking advantage to the full extent that he really can. So I'm really excited to see more of him. What did you think of DeMarvion's first NFL game?
It looks like they got a legitimate dude, and I wasn't really ready for that. I know that the reports out of camp were that he has looked fantastic, and then to go out and then also do that in the first preseason game, I thought was outstanding. I think that he's somebody who, when you look at the modern mold of a linebacker, that's kind of what you get. You get a guy who is a former safety, who put on a couple of pounds, can cover out of the backfield, and can fly around the football field and chase and tackle. And when you have a defensive line that is going to boast Jonathan Hankins, and then Mozzie Smith, hopefully, which we'll get into, you have a lot of freedom at the second level. And again, when you have a guy like Leighton Vander Esch back there as well, who is, in my opinion, one of the better coverage linebackers in the NFL. He's just so intelligent in the way that he does things, and he is a freak athlete, especially for being 260 pounds.
And I think Dan Quinn has brought the best out in him too. I think Dan Quinn really resurged his career career.
Yeah, and there was talks about him, getting into the blitzing game a little bit more this
Yeah.
year. I don't love that idea. I don't think that he's a particularly good blitzer. If there's one thing he's not very good at, it is attacking downhill. He's never going to be a guy who is going to get a bunch of tackles for loss. He's just going to do his job, be in the right gap, and make the tackle at 2 or 3 yards.
Yeah.
When you look at a guy in the middle of the defense there, who can cover the way he can run the pole at 260 pounds. I think that's a huge upgrade over what we've kind of been used to seeing before he came around, and even at times, before Dan Quinn came. So I'm excited to see this linebacker group, because outside of LVE, it is incredibly young. So excited to see how Damone Clark and DeMarvin Overshone kind of show up. But I also want to give flowers quickly to Devin Harper, who I think played the best game I've seen him play so far.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And again, I really cannot express how much Dan Quinn has resurged a lot of these guys to bring out the best in them. And the more you hear them talk about Dan Quinn and just the attention to detail he's putting in with them, it all makes sense. It all ties together. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Devin had a great game as well. But let's get into Mazi Smith, because there has been some criticism. Is it warranted? Is it a little extreme? Where are you on this Mazi Smith tightrope right now that everybody seems to kind of be walking on after his first preseason game?
Yeah, I mean, he needs to get off the ball better. He needs to get off the ball better. He needs to be more consistent technically. But it's funny. He is the physical specimen that we all thought he was. I mean, there's snaps in that game where he's double teamed and he doesn't move
Triple teamed
at
even.
all. Yes, I mean the dude is one of the strongest dudes in the NFL already, and he will get there. He will get there. It might take time. I've said that. Defensive tackle is a much more complicated position to transition to at the NFL level than a lot of guys are used to, because they are always asked to do different things. I look at a guy, in Cleveland, like Siaki Ika from Baylor, who went and was a true nose guard or true nose tackle like Mazi was at Michigan, and now he's going to be asked to attack in a 4-3 defense. And it's just, these guys are probably going to take a little bit of time to get the technical side of things down here. But you need to fix getting off of the ball a little bit quicker, Mazi. That's the one thing we got to figure out.
Getting off the ball quicker. And, I think somebody like Jonathan Hankins and reacquiring him in the offseason like the Cowboys did was vital to even, before Mazi was drafted. That was a vital step in your draft and develop process. So draft and develop, that's the mindset. You drafted, now you develop a little bit more and you work with Mazi on those things. But what I really liked is that in practice, it was a walkthrough practice on Monday for the Cowboys. There were videos of Mazi even working with Micah, trying to work on his handwork and kind of, Micah trying to show him a little bit more of that technical side of things. Yeah. And if anybody's going to do it, it's Micah Parsons, right? So we're not shocked that Micah was trying to help there. But I think it's really, really important that Jonathan Hankins has that veteran leadership that just comes such a long way with these guys, these younger guys. They really do mold the players that they become. And I will never, ever, ever forget, last season with Jason Peters and Tyler Smith. I think that's the perfect example of if a guy is coachable and he wants to learn how far he can come in just one season when you have a guy like that that's really next to you and working with you. So I think Jonathan Hankins will be a really, really fundamental part of the development you see with Mazi Smith. And again, just preseason. So who knows? Who knows if what we'll see from Mazi next week during their second game against Seattle. But you know what? It's okay. The sky's not falling. It's the whole point of this is that the sky's not falling. Life's good. And I also want to just mention how incredibly exciting this defense is, because again, this is your second, third, even fourth string guys. They're making plays, tackles for loss, batting down balls, doing everything that they need to do, showing me exactly what the entire team has been working on during training camp. So exciting stuff. Anyone else there on the defense that you want to make sure you talk about and give all your flowers to while we're here and just visiting this beautiful imaginary flower shop?
I don't think so. Not from week one. I think we're all right for right now.
I want to give Wanye Thomas a little
Okay.
little shout out. He didn't just get an interception in preseason. He got an interception from the Jags ones. Let's
Yep.
let's
He
let's
did.
let that set in a little bit. He on the first passing play of the game from Trevor Lawrence, Wanye Thomas said, "Watch this." So to me, a play like that can really amplify what a guy does in the rest of camp and then even into the rest of preseason. So I'm not going to count him out yet. I'm going to keep a very close eye on him and see how he can progress after that moment for him. Real quick, special teams. Let's talk about that real quick. There was a muffed punt. Kevontae Turpin. Are you worried about that? Is that something that is just eating you up at night? You can't sleep. You're really just you're stressing. Are you not? Where are you with that?
Turpin always scares me a little bit on punt returns, to be quite honest with you. Honestly, every time there's a punt return, I'm a little bit scared because I have tried to catch punts before. It is not an easy thing to do.
No.
So I'm always a little bit scared when I see punts being fielded, but I think at the end of the day, when you have a guy who every time he touches the ball, he can take it to the house, I can live with a muffed punt or two. But if it becomes somewhat consistent, then you are looking at getting Deuce Vaughn in there or somebody who can just catch the ball, because we've even seen times where Cole Beasley back in the day would just go back there just so he could catch the ball. He wasn't returning anything. There was not going to be any splash plays. He was just going to catch the football. And if that is what it comes down to, that's going to be what it comes down to. And if you do have somebody like Turpin who is going to play a little bit more on the offense, like we've said, it might be better to have Deuce Vaughn go in there and return a couple of punts.
See, and I think that's where things get a little bit foggy for me is, okay, Deuce Vaughn can be an active part of the offense, but maybe he wouldn't have as big of a role if they decided to give him more of that punt returner position, because that means Kevontae Turpin would have the bigger role on the offense. Hence, they kind of need him more a little bit on that side of things. Does that take away from that job? So I think that's where like the lines get a little bit blurred, and that's what is still a big question mark. I'm not really sure about yet. I think I'm going to have to continue to see the preseason progress. Either way, though, I don't ever think it was a competition for Kevontae's job. At this point, I think it's what is going to benefit him more. And if that means he takes a little bit less of those reps than he does to be integrated more in the offense. So, I think Terp is a guy that really it should be exciting, because when you think about it in terms of the Dallas Cowboys, when is the last time you had a punt returner that you knew could take it to the house every single time he had the ball? I mean,
Dez, when he did it for a very short period of time.
And then that's because it's Dez, right? So Kevontae Turpin is a special player. And I think for him, it could have just been a little bit of jitters. I don't think this preseason game is anything to read into for him. I think it's just, again, everybody has some rest they need to shake off, and I'm glad he got it out during the preseason and, not week 1 against the Giants. So I've always been a really big advocate for Kevontae Turpin when, even they got him. I thought his story, coming into the season was really cool. So I'm really excited to see his development this second year and what he's able to do, because he has put in work to build that chemistry with Dak Prescott. It's very evident. But we haven't gotten to see that yet, because obviously I don't think we're going to see Dak play in the preseason at all. So wanted to mention that. As far as special teams, the guy I wanted to mention was Tyler Coyle. I think he had an incredible game on special teams. He was all over the place on special teams. Like, you go back and you watch that film, Tyler Coyle constantly making tackles, gunning down where he needs to be. I think when you have a guy like that that's making himself noticeable, it makes him more of a little bit more of an asset in the conversation of, hey, but he was great on special teams. Could we really work with him and beef him up a little bit there as well? Kicking conversation. Let's put a little bow on this one. Brandon Aubrey, he was nailing some 50-plus yarders during pregame warmups, and then had a pretty solid game until the missed PAT. Should everybody raise a little bit of a red flag? Is it anything to be concerned about?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just the Cowboys and kicking. Here's the thing about kicking. You have 3, maybe 4 kickers in the NFL who you can legitimately count on. I'm like I've said before, I'm looking out in LA what happens with those two kickers out there, Cameron Dicker. That would be a great story. Obviously, the Texas kid, Dicker, the kicker, coming in and playing for the Dallas Cowboys would be a lot of fun. But we'll see what happens between those two, him and Dustin Hopkins. I think either is probably a better situation than what they have right now. And kicker isn't something that you need to, I say practice, you need to practice it, but like you don't need to pick up a scheme on offense or defense. You just come in and you make kicks. So if they come in 5 days before they play the New York Giants, I'm not worried about that. They can pick up a kicker whenever. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, cut them and find a new one. You're just going to continue to recycle these guys until you find somebody who can make kicks. And it looks like Brett Maher is going to be the guy in Denver. And it's going to be a lot of fun to see how he plays this year after getting the yips not 12 months ago. So it's just kind of the way that things seem to go in Dallas. There's just never, you're always a little bit uneasy about the kicking situation.
I think for me, I was a really big advocate after the season to keep Brett Maher on the roster. I understood the business decision of, man, you got the yips at the absolute worst time despite your great season. But to me, obviously I don't make any decisions for anybody in the Cowboys, but I was a real big advocate for keeping him around there, especially seeing the improvement that he made from his first round in Dallas to, even before the playoff game against Tampa Bay for him. But what I will say is I want to break the cycle. I'm tired of recycling through kickers. I'm tired of never knowing what to expect. And I think you don't get a Dan Bailey again unless you work to get the Dan Bailey again. And that comes with time, that comes with experience, and you have to be patient with these kind of things, especially when you have the offense you have built around Dak Prescott. You maybe don't necessarily need to rely on the kicking situation as much as you did last season, especially when Dak was out of the game with a thumb injury and it was Cooper Rush. You don't necessarily need to rely on it as much. It's still a very important part of the game. It can be a make or break. We've always talked about, one play can make or break the entire game for the team. But for me, I'm willing to be a little more patient with Brandon Aubrey, only because yes, there's some veteran kickers that you could throw out there and what have you. But then if they get the yips, like you said, you go to the next one. But then if they get the yips, you go to the next one. When does it end? When does the cycle end? It feels almost like a very toxic relationship that I think just needs to be stopped at some point. And I don't know if getting a veteran kicker is the solution. I don't know if staying with Brandon Aubrey is the solution. But I do know I really am just so ready to be at a solid position with kicker, and not even just for one season, just a solid amount of time to say, okay, that's not even something I have to worry about this time next year to talk about. So for me, I'm going to give him a little grace in this one, and I want to see what he does during practice this week. I want to see how he handles Seattle. I want to continue to see more of him, because I also think he has experience in professional sports, maybe not football. He can handle that pressure, right? So he's not just like a younger guy that is coming out of college. He can handle pressure. He's played soccer, so for me, I don't know. I've never been a kicker. I've never played soccer, but that's not something I think comes lightly in terms of the amount of pressure that he can handle. And I think him being the only one, it's his job to lose. So just do it, just prove it. And if it doesn't work out, yeah, there's some veteran kickers out there. But for me, I'm gonna stay on this Brandon Aubrey train for a little while longer. But yeah, I'm really excited to see more of him this week. So with that, who gets your MVP of this game? I mean, who is it? Who is your MVP? Or we could call it, let's see. Ooh, MVPFN. Oh my goodness. I came up with that on the spot. Oh man.
There we go.
Yeah. Who's your MVPFN of the game?
For me, I think for me, it's Devin Harper. I think the way that he played, especially for a guy who I wasn't sure was going to make the roster this year. Obviously, they have done a lot at the linebacker position to kind of shore that up with some of these young guys. He is another one of those young guys. He was drafted last year in the 6th round. So I think him putting on the show that he did in this preseason game is big, and I'm really excited to see if he's able to kind of stack weeks together and make it so they absolutely have to carry him when the season rolls around.
Beautifully said. I love that. I'm going to go with the MVP/PFN of Deuce Vaughn because he's the
That's
obvious
easy.
choice.
That's an easy one, yeah.
But he's not a bad choice. And
No.
he deserves it this week. And you know what? He has deserved this title of the people's choice. He's worked very hard to prove people that believe in him right. And I'm not going to say people wrong because that's not his mindset. And I think a lot of people, when they talk about his size, really undermine the skill and talent that he does have. So I'm glad he's coming out here and showing up really big for himself to show, look, I'm right where I belong, and I'm fighting for this roster spot just as much as anybody else. So with that, Dalton, where can people find you on social media and tweet you all of the things? We're talking memes. We're talking Taylor Swift lyrics. I mean, really anything that your heart desires. Where can they find you?
I love memes. You can find me on Twitter, pretty much everywhere at Dalton B. Miller. It's where I'm at.
There we go. They can send you their gym selfies. They can send you all the stuff. I mean, whatever you want to send Dalton, keep it G-rated. Let's try to keep it G-rated there. You can find me at Jess Nevarez _ on most things as well. And then, of course, you can keep up with both of us on ProFootballNetwork.com, where you can read all the articles that we write throughout the week. So, Dalton, with that, I'm so sad that our time has come to an end for this week. Thank you so much for being a great co-host. And we are so excited to keep this train going. Dallas Cowboys take on the Seattle Seahawks this Saturday for their second preseason game of 2023. And we'll have plenty to talk about next week. So have a great rest of your day, and we will talk to you then.